Stathopoulos and Josh Phegan come together in an incredible podcast, Grow, Scale, Master.
An energetic approach to drive progress, master skills, build strengths and put the strategy back into rapid business and personal success.
Backed by real-world experience in rapid scaling to playing the long-term game of business, it's the story of all the lessons learned on the journey to mastery.
Be inspired, renew your energy and chase the future with Grow, Scale, Master.
Con, one of the most confronting, pieces of dialogue that you'll hear is if you don't define you, someone else will.
Yeah, right.
Let's talk a little about that, about the definition of who you are. And I think that, Simon Sinek wrote a book about, start with why. And you say to people, oh, what's your why? And then they don't know what it is. And then they're like, oh, they're hoping to discover it in aisle 12 at Coles at 9:30 on a Friday night.
Or Bunnings.
Okay, mate, I don't know where you go. But that whole conversation is literally thinking about, like really understanding about who you are and what you're all about. And we see this in, a lot of conversations, when people go to retire, that then they've got, if they don't have any passions or they don't have any things that they love to do outside of real estate, it can be a really confronting thing. And this is that whole conversation. And I always noticed this in Albury where I was growing up, is that all of the major agents that had been dominant agents for decades, when they got to the point of retirement and they retired, they often died within 2 years.
Wow.
And the interesting thing is that I kind of have a look at the clarity of purpose. And it was an interesting one because Adil Gwandi wrote about it in a book called Being Mortal, that literally the difference often in a lot of surgeries in people post 70 was nothing to do with the surgeon and nothing necessarily to do with the recovery, but everything to do with the depth of the desire to want to live.
Yes.
And so, it's a bit deep,
It's very deep.
A couple of minutes in.
Wow.
But about that whole conversation about definition of you. So one of the things that I learned very quickly is that, who am I if I'm not on the stage training real estate agents? So what will you find Josh doing? Because my brain was overactive. I was so, passionate about just doing this particular project. And then I developed a list of things that I will go and do. So if I'm not in real estate training, I'll be on a motorcycle, I'll be in a sauna, I'll be going for a run, I'll be going to a great show, I'll be seeing a great music artist, I'll be hanging out with some friends, I'll be going for a walk, I'll be reading, I'll be creative, I'll be problem solving, I'll be traveling. You'll find me doing one of those things. And it gives me great solace because I see that a lot of people and you get this where agents go on a holiday and then they ring me day one on the holiday and they go, hey, Josh, I'm on holiday. What do you do? Because they're so used to, the rhythm and the routines and the rigidity, I guess, of, being a great agent.
I think it's very deep, first up.
Yeah.
But I think it's very valid. I think it's a very difficult conversation because when I first read that book from Simon Sinek, Start With Why, it started, all these questions in my brain. Am I on the right path? And, have I actually thought about this? I think the first thing is that what I've learned in my personal life is you got to be comfortable with the stage that you're at.
Yeah, sure.
So every level of growth requires a new version of yourself, right?
Yeah.
So where are you right now?
Yeah.
And are you comfortable with that? Are you comfortable with maintaining status quo? Are you comfortable with the performance in your, personal life and your business life, your physical, your mental health, all that type of stuff? And then I think once you're comfortable with who you are, that's when you can start defining what I do outside of real estate. Because you're right. So a lot of people that I see when they're introducing themselves, hey, I'm Con, I'm a real estate agent. No, I'm Con, this is what I do. I've got 2 kids and a wife and Franklin, my puppy, and, I love, CrossFit and all that type of stuff. And by the way, I happen to work in real estate. Does that make sense?
Yeah, of course it does. And so this is that thing about know thyself that, if Con's not doing real estate, what do we find you doing?
Mate, exactly what you're doing. I'm reading, I'm training, I'm walking, I'm traveling, I'm chilling out, I'm recovering, I'm doing everything that I can to keep me at the level that I need to be for that time.
And you probably didn't think about that necessarily, but you're being a great dad, being a great leader, but also being a great partner to your lovely wife. And this is that whole idea is about understanding the buckets that you play in. Why are pursuits outside of the game of business, why do they make you even better in business?
Oh, I just think it depends on your streak. So I've got a competitive streak. So CrossFit for me is something that makes me better because I'm always striving to be personally better, but also beat the person that I'm, imagining that I'm actually competing with. So I think a pursuit outside of real estate gets your brain shifting from one side to another to be able to give you that space for clarity. So the reason why do you sauna?
Well, it's time out of the game.
That's exactly
Rest
right.
and relaxation, time to read a book, time to just, it's my deliberate recovery after being in the performance zone all day.
Exactly. And then what happens when you come out of that? You've got maybe little bits of clarity on.
Oh, absolutely.
Right.
Or I rest really well after.
Correct.
So calming down and resting the body. Yeah.
So that's why it's important to have these pursuits outside of what we do.
And the interesting thing is that your best ideas very rarely happen whilst you're in the middle of the battle.
Correct.
So in other words, like, you go for a walk and you come back and you've completely got out of that box. And I sort of said to someone the other day that you got to be careful of the box that you're in, because you're making this box really dark when in fact it could be filled with light.
Yes.
And they're like, oh yeah, because it's like, oh no, I'm lonely. And I'm like, no, go the other way. You've got incredible freedom.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I don't have to do anything. I don't have to be anywhere for anyone at any particular point in time, but use that freedom really well.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think it's like that lens. You've got to change the lens on the way that you see yourself versus what other people see. And I think more importantly, going back to that comfort, how comfortable are you right now? Comfort, by the way, I'm not saying that to be uncomfortable. I'm saying, are you personally comfortable with the person that you are today? If you're not, you need to make some changes. It's pretty simple.
And so finding out what really makes you come alive, and you've been in the goal setting sessions when we do this, where we say, okay, great, open up your phone, go to the photo section and tell me what you take photos of.
Yeah.
And people are like, oh, I take a lot of photos of X, Y, or Z. Okay, great. Well, that's actually what you love doing.
Yeah.
And people are like, oh, yeah, but it's like, hot cars, and it's like motorcycles, and it's like trips overseas.
That's cool.
That's what you love then.
Yeah, that's cool.
And other people are like, oh, I take photos of baked goods and like, pastries.
Awesome.
I'm like, okay, great.
Yeah.
And so that whole thing is about like finding what makes you come alive, that drive to survive, and then the drive to want to thrive. And I always say to someone right now, like, the way that you're doing it right now, do you feel that it's surviving? Or the way that you're doing it right now, do you feel that you're on the trajectory that you're about to go and thrive?
Yeah, I love that.
And people are like, oh, that's kind of an interesting thing. And I read a very confronting thing the other day that it said, like, in every relationship that you're in, I want you to ask yourself the honest question, how good is this relationship right now?
Yeah.
Is it growing or is it dying? In other words, it's a lot of effort, a lot of energy. It's just not what it was. They're not responsive. It's, and actually really thinking that through. And I was like, wow, to get into a position of thriving, you've got to be in that real clarity about like what you actually love to do.
Absolutely. 100%.
Can you tell, like, when people have clicked with understanding what their drivers are, what motivates them and what matters?
Yeah, absolutely. So in our business, we obviously do a lot of business planning, but that business planning is really around life planning. So I look at real estate as a great vehicle for people to change their lives. So if we can understand first what it is that someone wants to achieve personally, then professionally we can overlay those, and then that's when you start getting those the multiplier effects, because people are more passionate and tied to a goal that's bigger than them. So, for example, it might be, we've got one of our agents that donates 100% of their commission to charity. You would never know who they are, but 100% of all their commission goes to charity.
Wow.
Right? Now, so the driver for that person isn't real estate. It's not a listing or a sale. It's actually helping whoever they're helping get ahead. Right? So I think the importance of being able to work out who you are, where you want to be, where you are right now, what changes need to be made to be able to, thrive or get out of that survival mode. That's entirely up to us. And I think this Christmas break is a perfect time, because you get a lot of people that go back, from work, and they either are really motivated or they really, probably don't want to do what they're doing anymore. Either's fine, but the clarity is the key for this.
So one of the activities that I do, and I do it every year, particularly with my Changed Agent finalists, the people that win that award, because I have to go and spend a day with them. And we do this thing, what I go to call advanced identity design.
Right.
And I actually sit down with them and I go, okay, great. So where are you at in life and where are things going? And let's just send up the weights. So we actually do a profit and loss statement, and we do a balance sheet on them as a person.
Right.
So profit and loss, where are their revenue sources? Being a real estate agent, do they have any investment properties? Do they have any shares? Do they have any money in the bank for interest, as an example? And then the next conversation is that, what is that looking like? How much are they saving every year? And then we go into the detail of, let's kind of look at your balance sheet. So what do you own? Houses, investment properties, shares, for example, money in the bank. What liabilities do you have in terms of debt structures? And then we actually then come up with a number called TNW, which is the true net wealth. So assets minus liabilities and what's left over. And then I say, okay, great. So if we're thinking about where you're at today, what do we want this to look like and how are we going to go and get there? And then the next conversation is that, okay, improving the self-talk, what are some really, really important goals to you, experiences, things that you would like to see? So don't tell me travel overseas. Tell me that you'd like to go and eat pasta in Italy and you'd like to be in a position to have some sushi in Japan and see the sumos. And so I can actually see the photo moment of what that actually looks like so that you know when you've actually arrived. So we go through all of that exercise over the course of the day. And when we get to the end of the day, we then come up with a statement. So it says, I'm Con and I am in a position that I'm happy being a great real estate business owner. My goal in life is to help people to thrive inside of residential real estate practices. I'm in a position that I'd like to go and buy a brand new family home for $1 million. In the next 2 years, I'd also like to own another investment property. I'm doing everything I can to diversify my income, and that's through investment properties, but also through an ETF with Vanguard. And like literally, and you're going to see me have some great fun adventures in my life, which includes taking my lovely wife to Greece and da-da-da-da-da. We'll have the photo next to the pool and whatever the story is. And so then like literally they've got this full thing and then I make them read it to me 3 times.
Yeah.
And so then they're like, and I'm like, how do you feel about that? And it's really interesting what happens because like there's like all of these insecurities or things might come to the top. So people, I'm not sure if I could do that. I feel inferior. I feel like that's a bit of an imposter. Am I really going to be able to go and do that?
Do I deserve that?
And often it's like, yeah, but how would I do that? So if I said to you, okay, cool, Con, within the next 2 years, you and Emily have to substantially upgrade your home and go to one that's double the value of your current one. And you're like, well, how would I do that? How would I get the extra $1 million, $2 million or whatever it is? And you're like, I don't know. Okay, well now put your mind to how we could do that.
Yeah.
And you're like, we could sell one more house extra per salesperson per month. We could get another person inside of the business. We could grow a better property management business, whatever it might be. So when you put the vision out there, you often then come back to then start understanding what the building blocks are.
100%.
And that's got to then relate to the routine, but also to the hunger of what it is that you're going for. And that's what I sort of say to them is that in advanced identity design, like the biggest problem that we've got with things like Instagram is it drives a ton of insecurity. It drives a ton of that imposter syndrome that you're speaking about. But here's the alternate view. I say to you, okay, great. How often would you read over your goals? Once every so often. Could you read over them every night? Not really. I don't have time. I got kids, man. I got XYZ. Okay, great. Show me your phone.
Yeah, going to your
screen time.
That's exactly right.
And now it says that you spent 90 minutes on social today.
Yeah.
So are you saying that you couldn't actually spend 5 minutes in reviewing that? And so, we've been using quite a bit of AI in the business at the moment. And one of the little things that I've got is I asked the AI to throw me up a random goal every day.
That. You showed me
it's
that.
So funny. And so it said to me the other day, it goes, how are you going with getting your property manager to paint the picket fence on your investment property?
Yeah.
And I maybe told a little white lie. I was like, she's on holidays till the end of January. And so when she's back, then I'll ask her to do it. And it goes, that's so respectful of you to allow someone to have the holiday time. I'll check in with you at the end of January to see how the painting of the fence has gone.
Yeah.
And now I'm like, that's accountability and responsibility.
Absolutely.
Because guess what? It ain't going to forget. And it's not going to let me off.
Yeah, I love that. I love the advanced identity design. I think that's something that we can do in our business for sure.
Experiences that rapidly shaped you.
The interesting thing is that creativity is really the skill of great salesmanship. And I'm going to tell you the story about the service station, the Greyhound, the train, and the highway. And, I've used this for a while, but it was such a pivotal moment in my career. So I was in the car with my dad. We're at the service station. We just filled the car up with petrol and a guy turns up behind us and says, g'day. And Dad has a bit of a chat with him and he goes, what are you doing? And Dad said, we're rolling down to this auction. So we roll down to this auction in a place called Chiltern. And we turn up to this place and it's horrendous. Like it has not been looked after. One side of it is the railway. The other side is the Hume Freeway. The other side is the local cemetery. And the people that have been in the house have had 14 greyhounds that have been living in the property, right? And so it's clearly dysfunctional. And this is well before styling and cleaning your property was a thing, right? And like this thing's a shocker. And this guy's turned up at the auction. We've got no one on it. Like I'm like 7 or 8 years old and I even know we have no one on it, right? And this guy says to my dad, he goes, oh my God, he goes, geez, this place is just so noisy with the highway. And Dad turns to him and says, man, you can't even hear it when the train comes past. and mate, he ends up buying it at the auction and pays full freight. And the interesting conversation is
literally
like salesmanship is all about creativity.
Yeah, that's cool.
And thinking differently about what you do.
Something that's changing your view.
you know, kind of, I guess that whole thing is about like, you know, we join brands and we go in search of home. And I know this sounds funny, but on a recent, you know, bit of traveling I've been doing, when I've been getting to those locations, I've been like trying to find, where's the cool spot, you know, to go to in this place because I don't know it. And so I'm like, okay. And I've been typing in the brand that I know.
Oh, okay. Like Rimua when you're in Tokyo.
It's exactly what I did.
There you go. There you go.
So then I went to the Rimua store and all of the other cool stores are around that.
Gotcha. That's very clever. Yeah.
It's a different way of thinking.
Yeah, it is a different way of thinking. I tell you one thing that's changing my view at the moment is customer service is expected. It's all about customer experience. I went to Guzman the other day. I got one of those burrito bowl things. And the lady that served me, all she had to do was just smile and just be pleasant as opposed to processing me like I was a machine.
Yeah.
And I just thought to myself, wouldn't it be just incredible if we just added a smile to everything that we did?
Yeah. It's simple stuff and it makes a massive difference, right?